Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt, and today we're going to be talking about NFL wide receivers contracts in 2022, how much they're making. Be ready to feel very broke. I'm just going to let you guys know because the money receivers are making now is ridiculous. And this has been the offseason for NFL receivers, seeing Davante Adams move from coast to coast. I mean, Tyreek Hill moving around the league, and these players getting absolutely paid with their new teams. On top of that, you got the Cooper Kupp contract, the A.J. Brown contract, you got the Marquise Brown contract, the Deebo Samuel contract. I mean, the list goes on of receivers who are just getting the bag, paid more than ever in history. Now, this leads us on to the next thing because after this has been the year of the offseason, we're really looking at how we can afford Justin Jefferson. After Justin Jefferson, according to a poll I ran on my YouTube channel, 70% of people believe Justin Jefferson is the top receiver in the league. Obviously, this poll is skewed because a lot of people who do watch this show are Vikings fans. But with that being said, still, he's an undisputed top 5 receiver in the league right now, and I would argue you shouldn't even put him outside of your top 3. Now, with that being said, as of right now, Justin Jefferson being arguably the best receiver in the league, it is clear that he is going to be the focal point of our offense going forward. And when I say going forward, I'm not talking about 2022, 2023. I'm talking about all the way until he's over the age of 30. So let's take a look at this. The biggest winner of this NFL offseason, according to Field Yates, is Justin Jefferson. As like I've mentioned, multiple receivers got paid this offseason. Field Yates, NFL insider of ESPN, tweeted out, a huge winner of the exploding wide receiver market this offseason, Justin, best receiver in the league, Jefferson. He has more receiving yards than any other player before turning 23. The most yards ever through 2 Pro Bowl seasons, is a 2-time All-Pro. Should be 2-time first-team All-Pro. He's extension eligible after the season and may sign for $1 billion. Billion. With a B. A wide receiver, an NFL player making $1 billion. I don't know where the Field Yates is getting this from. As of right now, the highest paid contract goes to Patrick Mahomes, who is on a 10-year contract. 10-year contract, I believe it was. Yep, 10-year worth $450 million. So I don't know where this $1 billion is coming from. At the end of the day, Justin Jefferson's going to be the most paid receiver in NFL history. He will. There's no question. The only way is if he suffers with a massive injury, which or wherever Wood is, please don't happen. We need him. God, please protect this man. So if you take a look at the top 5 contracts currently when it comes to wide receivers, you'll notice off of this top 5 with Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, and A.J. Brown. 4 of these 5 players signed their contract this offseason. So it is clear every NFL team is investing more into not just their quarterback, but who their quarterback is throwing to. Because as a lot of people argue, and I disagree, a lot of people argue the quarterback is only as good as the wide receivers he's throwing to, or they'll argue that the wide receivers are only as good as the quarterback throwing to them. So it is clear that wide receiver is arguably maybe the second most important position in 2022. Maybe. I mean, who's protecting for your quarterback is important, and who's getting to the other team's quarterback is important. At the end of the day, it is all about the quarterback. And this is where the NFL is heading in 2022. Well, 31 of the 32 teams, other than Bill Belichick, he's doing his own thing. The other 31 teams, this is really where it's heading. And taking a look at the top 5 contract, you have Tyreek Hill, who's now making $30 million a year. That is quarterback money. $30 million a year. You got Davante Adams, who just went to Las Vegas making $28 million a year. He has a contract worth $140 million, which is the biggest amongst wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, we all know his contract hit the league by a surprise, how big his contract was. Now you're looking at it, and it's just average amongst wide receivers of his talent. Cooper Kupp, obviously, massive contract he signed, approximately $27 million. This is all based off to the closest million, pretty much, averaged around. And then A.J. Brown, $25 million. And you'll notice amongst these top 5 players, if you look at the top 5 wide receivers, they're old. Outside of A.J. Brown, obviously. The other 4, the top 4 receiver contracts, they're older guys. And what do we know about the league? Younger receivers usually get paid more. When you compare Justin Jefferson with the top 5 receivers right here, you can argue that he's not number 1. But what you can't argue is that he won't be the number 1 paid receiver. Because here's the reason why. Like I mentioned, the top 4 receivers are much older than him. Meaning when you take into the contract, when you give someone a massive extension like Justin Jefferson will get, you have to You have to input inflation into it. You have to think about the salary cap going up in the future, and he's going to be on a higher contract. There's no debating this. Not only is he only 23, but he's suffered with no massive career-threatening injuries up to this point. On top of that, I mean, just look at the guy. 23 years old, wide receiver. Wide receivers getting paid more than they ever have before. That aside, there's no question he's going to be the highest paid receiver, unless obviously injuries say otherwise. Not only do I believe that he's not going to be the highest paid receiver, or not only do I believe that he will be the highest paid receiver, he's going to have the longest receiver contract extension of all time. I believe, as of right now, call me crazy, Justin Jefferson's contract is going to be about 10 years long. 10 years until he's 33 years old. And the reason why is not only just because he's a great receiver who's very young, but because this gives the Vikings a lot of options. You have the options of maybe trading him in the later half of his career, getting some value off of him. You have the options of giving him a lower guaranteed money this way. I mean, there's a lot of options the Vikings will open up where you can move a lot of this money to the future. That way you don't have to pay it now. And typically, I don't like when teams do this, but it makes sense because when you look at it as a whole, this could help the Vikings out when you're looking at the possibilities of maybe extending him for a third contract, maybe cutting him, maybe trading him away. There's a lot of options that this opens up in the future. That being said, I believe that it's going to be a massive contract, but how big do I think it's going to be? Personally, I don't know where this $1 billion is coming from Field Yates. I don't know where this $1 billion, what he knows that I don't know. I believe his contract is not going to be $1 billion, but still going to be a massive contract at $350 million for 10 years. $350 million for 10 years averages at $35 million a year, making him the highest paid receiver in the league. $350 million means the highest paid or the highest wide receiver contract of all time. And also $190 million of that being guaranteed. That's over half of the contract as expected when it comes to wide receivers. Again, still being the highest in NFL history and making approximately 16% of the salary cap for the Vikings. I feel like this is as good of a scenario that we can ask for. This is the floor. It's very possible that his contract is closer to a Patrick Mahomes contract. It's very possible that it is, but it all has to do with what does Justin Jefferson value? Does he value the money or does he value winning? Because I believe this is a team-friendly deal where you're still respecting Justin Jefferson by making him the highest paid receiver of all time and hopefully, most likely, the highest paid receiver for the next few years. Looking at it as of right now, I mean, 16% of the salary cap is close to. That's pretty much what Kirk Cousins is making as of right now. It's second amongst the teams right now, but that's closer to a Kirk Cousins contract. You're giving a wide receiver quarterback money. Field Yates. $1 billion, dude? $1 billion. I believe the top comment on this was, 1 billion, you high or drunk or both, by @LucasCruz something. Yeah, maybe he's right. Do you guys think he's going to get $1 billion contract? Do you think Justin Jefferson's going to be the highest paid receiver? No, player of all time. Have the biggest contract of all time. I don't know where this $1 billion is coming from and what he knows that I don't know. Because I feel like when it comes to salary cap situations, I study it quite a bit and I don't know where $1 billion is coming from. I have him at a $350 million minimum and possibly much higher than that. We'll have to wait and see. But with that being said, what do you guys think? What do you think his contract's going to be? Is it Justin Jefferson could be the highest paid receiver? Maybe he's not. Maybe Justin Jefferson, maybe the Vikings give him a fifth-year option. We didn't even talk about that as a scenario. If the Vikings give Justin Jefferson a fifth-year option, I will go to the Will family myself and smack them in the face if they give Justin Jefferson a fifth-year option. But with that being said, here is my take on the Vikings situation when it comes to the Justin Jefferson. Let me know what y'all think.